So that video's going. Oops. I'll do this. Okay. So, can you do me one favor? That's going to help me? Is just clap your hands. Just clap your hands together. Clap.
Clap my hands.
Yep. Okay. That helps me sync it up. Okay. So basically, we've got the, here you are.
Uh-huh.
Here I am and Roseanne. Basically, a bunch of people.
Right.
And there's, this is kind of your side here.
Okay.
Of everybody in the family tree.
Uh-huh.
So, what, I don't know, is there stuff you were thinking about when I talked about this that was like, you know, that anything that came up or stuff that you wanted to relate or talk about, or is there kind of
my mother was okay. She always thought she was born in 1900. My mother. And I have the birth certificate.
It was Alpha Ambeline.
Alpha Ambeline of McFadden. She always, that was their family name. She always thought she was born in 1900. When I received a number of genealogy papers from the historical unit in Chehalis, among them was my grandmother's death, which was 1899. So it was obvious that she was born in 1899. She was not born in 1900.
Right.
But the birth certificate is, at that time, the only birth certificate they had was the back of the marriage certificate. And I have my grandparents' marriage certificate with the births recorded on the back.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's what you have. You have a picture of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But I have the original, and it lists her as being born 1899.
Right.
Now, she was
so
raised...
your grandmother was Ambeline.
Yes.
And then your
Ambelina.
Mom was Alpha Ambeline.
It's Ambelina.
Oh, okay.
It's Ambelina. And I have a cousin that was named Ambeline, and she hated that so badly that the day she was 21, she went to the courts and had her name actually changed.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Now, my mother was raised by her oldest sister,
which would have been
Lorena.
Okay.
Rena. Everybody called her Rena.
But she had older brothers too, right? Because here's the family tree here, and so it shows Benjamin's the oldest son,
really?
Obadiah Jr. and Harold.
Yeah, but see.
But then.
But these are younger.
Right, that's what I mean. Is there?
Yeah.
That's the oldest sister.
That's right,
I mean,
and that's the one.
She
was 22 or 21 when my grandmother died. So she took care of my mother as a mother, essentially. I never knew that, but she was always very close. I always called her Aunt Rena.
So you knew her?
Oh yes,
well?
Absolutely. I lived with her and her husband. They had a 360-acre ranch outside of Chehalis.
Oh, really?
And they had everything. It was pretty much, when I was a child, they had a wood stove, they had electricity, and they had a very large house, 5 bedrooms with one little bathroom that you could put in, was smaller than the one bathroom over there, our second bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And you didn't take a bath every day. You took a bath on the weekend, you know. But
so was it pretty rural? I mean, was it pretty? You know, was it like just outside of a township?
No,
or was it kind
no.
Of out?
It was 7 miles outside of Chehalis, and at that time, 7 miles was a long time. It was a big deal to go into Chehalis.
Half a day of walking.
well,
Or
I
whatever.
don't know about walking, but I know, but the way we eat, I mean, it was a working farm. They had cows. They had cows that they sold the milk. They had a large bunch of chickens. They had rabbits. They had geese. They had pigs.
Mm-hmm.
They had everything. They had a large, and there was an old wrecked house down on one part of it where they had a large orchard, and it was the original building for the family before they built the other one.
Oh, okay.
You know,
So
which
it
was not
something they built and then
oh
moved
yes,
on from.
oh
and
yes,
abandoned.
moved on from. You know, but they had a large that. They had horses and so forth. I used to ride horses.
And Chehalis, so Chehalis is south of like. Is it?
It's
south
about
of Olympia?
30 miles south of Olympia.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
But it was very rural. They always caught their own salmon and dried them, you know, and cooked them and smelt. They always had a box. The house was heated by wood stoves,
Right.
and they always had a box of smelt of smoked smelt underneath the.
Smelled fishy then, I'd assume.
Yeah,
right?
oh, they were fantastic in the wintertime. They made all their own sausage, they made all their own
Wow.
ham, bacon especially, you know. And it was a rural area, and when they butchered a pig or they butchered a cow, they always took part of it to other people. You know, everybody shared in the neighborhood.
Right.
So it was. I got a real rural,
Oh, that's great.
you know, childhood or most
And
of.
so your mom grew up with Rena.
That's right.
And so did she keep living there? I mean, did you grow
No.
up kind of right around there? or-
No. When she was, probably about 16, she went away to normal school, which is now the University of Washington. I mean, not the one in Eastern Washington.
Okay.
Probably Washington State. I'm not really sure. But at that time, it was a normal school, and they trained teachers. She taught for 1 year.
Wait, your mom?
My mother
Yeah.
did, when she was probably 17, and she hated it because she taught in a rural school where the kids were bigger than her, older than her, you know, and some of these. So she didn't like it, so she stopped. She quit doing that. And I don't know what I'm not.
So wait, so that was over towards like on the other side of the
East-
Cascades, or
right,
towards
right.
Spokane? Like was
towards
it that
Spokane, yeah.
Far? Okay.
Okay, I think. And then she went to the University of Washington, and I understand that that's where she met my dad.
Okay. Right.
And they were married, and I don't know what,
Which is Haven, right?
Haven, Boomer, yes.
So he shows up.
And this
here.
is very interesting because you show him as having a wife before my mother. I never knew that.
Well, I don't know if they're before. They could have been just born before. Let's see. If I
Oh,
click on
I
him
don't
here,
know.
I'll show you. The way
Yeah,
the
I
tree
see.
shows up,
Uh-huh.
there's it'll kick out a timeline here.
But the one that you showed me said that he had another wife before he had my mother, and then he had 2 more wives after my mother.
No, she was his first husband, or
His
his
first-
first wife,
Okay,
and then
2 more after that.
Zelma Gilbert, and then Thelma Moore. So these are subsequent marriages.
Okay.
Those are all after
Yeah.
her.
I met my mother-in-law or my grandmother on his side one time
Who
when
was Anne Stanaway, right?
I don't know who she is.
Based on this, which is all I have to go on.
Yeah.
So basically these two, the McFadden and Ambeline Hanson, their leg is over there.
Right.
And from here over
Okay.
is Boomer's.
All right.
So there's Jacob Henry Boomer, which is
All right.
his dad,
Now-
and Anne Marie Stanaway.
Well, I apparently saw. Well, no, apparently he was married again,
she
because
looks like you to me.
but she died before I was born.
Right,
So
1918.
he must have had a second wife, because I met her one time when I was about 4 or 5, and she had on a black dress, and that's all I remember. She was very scary.
So he died in 1940.
I don't know.
Yeah,
See,
that's
I
what
never
it's
met him.
Showing
I
up
never
in-
met him.
Oh, okay. So you'd never met him.
No,
at all.
never met him.
All right. So, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't show up in this timeline, but
No,
that doesn't
I
mean
know.
anything.
Right.
And so there's Alpha, but you know like your aunts, and I remember Viola when I was
this is
really
Pat.
little.
There's Viola. Greg was my uncle, and I hated him. He was a mean man. He was a
Oh,
very
really?
mean. Yeah. Well, I thought he was, because I was very tender-hearted, and he was always mean, just mean. And he was so mean to his son, Greg. So mean, And Catherine, Kate, she lived in Morton. I knew him, but he
That's
died.
Harold.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he died. That's Mary's grandfather.
Okay.
Okay, and him I never met. Obviously,
Obadiah. He
right.
died 1919.
Yeah, but he was.
So that's Obadiah Jr.
Yes.
Or
right.
maybe even
Well, he
maybe
was.
even the third,
No, I think he's the second, but I'm not sure.
because there's Obadiah B.
Mm-hmm.
McFadden.
And that's his father. That's
Right. So
his
Obadiah.
father. Right.
Okay. And then, so is this Obadiah that was the?
That's the judge.
That's
the
the
judge. Right.
Yeah, and there's pictures of him and stuff. I should attach
Oh, I have
that.
I have a whole big folder of that stuff if you're interested in it.
Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff here. Actually, I think I have it. When you look in the gallery here, there's a
It's-
bunch of pictures and whatnot.
Oh, really?
Well, what happened? I was just thinking, oh, hang on, maybe.
Upload to media.
No, there was like kind of a profile picture of him, like him in profile
Oh, really?
somewhere.
Yeah.
Maybe it's kind of crossed with this. And so basically, the first Obadiah came across from Pennsylvania.
Yes.
So there's like a big Pennsylvania Dutch kind of
He brought.
contingent.
He sent his family. Well, he came first because he was nominated by the president to be who he knew before he became president.
Mm-hmm.
And he was nominated to be the first territorial judge of the territory of Washington and Oregon. So he came by horseback across the country, and then his family, and he had 4 or 5 kids, and later he had 9, but he had 4 or 5 kids at the time, and they came back. They came across the country by covered wagon
Right.
on the Oregon Trail to Portland, Oregon, or Vancouver, essentially.
Let's see. So Reno was born in Washington.
Yes.
It shows. Let's see. It's
Yes.
Harold. He was born in Washington.
Okay.
Uh,
Grays Harbor, that's Washington.
Yeah. He was.
Well,
Ben McFadden was born in Washington.
Yeah.
So maybe he had kids that kind of never made the trip, or who knows what.
I don't know, but
Right.
he had some, I know. You don't have a complete.
Well, it does get pretty wide. It
Yeah,
does. If
you
you
don't-
look here, the amount of people here
Oh, I know.
gets real big real fast.
Yeah, it does.
So sometimes I just try to.
And then they
uh,
just die out.
Well, yeah, and
Our
also
family did.
sometimes it just goes really wide. Like one generation has
I know.
12 kids
I know.
times multiple siblings. It
I
gets
know.
real big real fast.
Yes.
So that said, sometimes I try to just keep it more of like the direct.
Sure.
the
I
direct
understand.
path.
I understand.
And so wait, so what was it like with all the like, say, your aunts and uncles, did they all kind of live in the same area? And like, what was that kind of?
Pretty much. Pretty much. Uncle Bob lived in Chehalis,
Mm-hmm.
and
Are you trying to move it?
yeah.
No, it's just
Oh, okay.
right.
Okay. Viola went to California. She
Right.
was the only one that had gone to California. And
She was down in Torrance, right, or something?
No,
Where
no,
was
she was down in Van Nuys.
Okay.
Okay, and so was that was Pat, my aunt Pat. I don't know how she ever got that name, but she owned the at the time it was called Valley Hospital in Van Nuys, and now it is Doctors Hospital. She sold it, and when I was probably 6, my mother and I lived in Chehalis, and we lived in an apartment over a grocery store. My
Mhm.
mother worked in the treasurer's department for the county of Lewis County there, because she had a very good friend who was the treasurer. And we lived there, and when I was about, that was after we had come back. No, before that we were, I'm sorry, I've got my timeline mixed up. I don't know. I know when my mother and father were married, I had lived in Bellingham. I'd lived in several cities, but that was when I was a baby, so I do not remember any of it. I was born
Right.
in Tacoma General Hospital, and I don't know. And the first memory I have is when we lived in Chehalis. He was the manager of a grocery store. And it was during the Depression, and either he went bust or he went bust trying to feed people. I don't know. But I understand he was a very violent man when he was drinking. He was an alcoholic when he died. But I understand, and I've had a member of my family tell me that my mother and he were at a party one time, and she had her leg across another chair, and he came down as hard as he could trying to break her leg.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, and she was terrified of him. So in the middle of the night, and I don't remember it at all. She didn't tell anybody except an uncle where she was going, and we left and went to California.
Wow.
And lived with my aunt Viola for a while at that time, and then
So you were like 6 when that?
yeah. Uh-huh.
That's a long trip.
I know. We went to Van Nuys, and one of the things that I remember when you registered for school, well, they put me ahead a half a year school. They had half year deals in almost all the states then. They put me ahead a half year, and when you register, you have to give them your location of where you're living, because there was a river that literally ran down one of the streets in Van Nuys, and whenever it rained, you couldn't cross the street.
Mhm.
It was that bad. There wasn't any flood control, and so they would have to send buses out for the kids on the other side. That's the one thing I remember there, But then we lived there for a while. Went back up to Chehalis.
So you were down there for what? How long do you think?
God,
Maybe
I can't even
a
remember.
year or 2 or longer, or?
I honestly don't remember. And then we went back up to Chehalis and lived there when my mother worked. That was when my mother worked for the treasurer after that. And we went back when I was a senior in high school, in the middle of my senior year. And
Back south?
back to,
Van Nuys?
yeah, right. We went to live at the hospital. My Aunt Pat owned the hospital, and it was a small private hospital. And at that time there weren't many hospitals there. There was the one in I can't think. Anyway, it was one of 2 hospitals in the valley.
Right.
So we lived with her, And I got sick when I was a senior in high school. I got sick, and they put me in my aunt's hospital, and they, my aunt thought I had diphtheria, and they had given me some antibiotics, that so it wouldn't turn out, and so they said fine. I was fine. I went back to school for several days, came back again, and I was in the hospital again, and she said, I know she has diphtheria. So she tested me again, and I tested positive for diphtheria, which is a transmittable disease, it's a
Right.
communicable disease. So they put me in the hospital downtown in Los Angeles, the county,
really?
the county hospital. And my aunt had a terrible time because any ambulance that would take me down there would be confiscated because it had communicable disease in it.
Right.
So, and when this happened, I knew all the nurses, so they used to come and visit me. All of a sudden, my door went shut, and I didn't see anybody. Well, I had communicable disease,
Right.
and so they closed my aunt's hospital.
Really?
Oh yeah, until it was taken care of, and she had a good friend who owned the ambulance service there, so she got an ambulance to take me down there. I was down there for a month in the hospital, and my vocal cords were paralyzed because I had it for so bad. I had had it for a long time. When I got out of the hospital, I had a heart condition, so, and I don't know why. I used to have to go into my aunt's hospital, and they would,
So I just want to make sure this is still recording.
okay,
We're good.
my aunt's hospital, and lie over one of the tables, and they'd give me shots every week, but I was not able, I didn't finish. I had to go to school during the summer to finish high school.
Right.
So I did that. That was in
So it ran its course, and
Yeah.
I mean, was
Yeah.
that like something that
No,
people would?
no. It's just I don't know what gave me the heart condition or what it was. I say it's a heart condition, but I don't really know. All I know was that when I got out of the hospital, I wasn't in very good shape,
Right.
So they had to do that for months, and I wasn't able to do very much for a while after that.
Mm-hmm.
But and that happened with that. That was during the time, I believe, that my mother contacted my father because they didn't expect me to live
Wow.
with the diphtheria. So that's where I don't know how it came to be that I have this one picture of my half-sister. Little picture. Have you ever seen it?
Yeah. You
Yeah,
showed that.
okay, that little one, like a stamp.
Right.
That's the only thing I've ever known that she was, her name is Shirley, and that's all I know.
Uh-huh.
So,
she's probably.
and her mother's name was Dorothy.
Right. So if we
Yeah.
go here, Dorothy Greer.
Right.
So her last name wouldn't be Greer, it'd be
Oh,
Boomer.
no, wait a
So
minute.
So that's Haven.
Yeah. But she's still
And
alive.
that's-
Oh, no.
No,
No.
that would be your half sister's mother.
Okay, yes.
Would have died
All
in
right.
2002.
All right. Yeah. But she was,
And then there's also kids from Zelna Gilbert
see, I didn't know that.
who
Now you're just telling
Are
me something
these
that I
two-
didn't know. Obviously, I have
I
other
think they're in Florida or
half
something.
brothers and sisters, that I
Yeah.
didn't know about.
So,
1926 in California,
1930.
but the other one's 1926.
Right.
That's before. Oh,
that's before you.
Yeah, that's before. Yeah, that's before me.
So that could have been from a different father. See, look. So yeah, that's the thing. Is she could have had these kids with.
Oh, from somebody
Somebody
else.
else.
Yeah. Okay.
It shows up like
Yeah, I
these two
understand.
had this kid, but
I
she had
understand.
these kids with
Okay.
somebody who's not
I
attached to anything.
Yeah, I understand. Now, Dorothy, the one he married twice. I understand there's two marriage certificates, one with her maiden name, and then she got divorced from him and then remarried him 2 years later. But I don't know for sure.
Mhm.
I have the.
Those things show up in here, I think, somewhere. I mean, I don't know that specifically, but sometimes they do. They show up as
Well, I
like
have the paperwork
marriage certificates.
from this friend who does all the work, you know.
Right. So there's certificates, and actually, you can even look at them. It's crazy, like how.
Oh yeah,
the kind
you've
of
done a
detail.
lot of work on this.
So you can actually look at it. So. So what was he like? Like your dad? What do you remember?
I don't know
like?
that much. See now here. Oh,
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
shouldn't
I
have
thought
done
it was
that.
his age was 21 because that was younger. That was younger than when my mother married him.
I'll do this. I'll go back to that. Okay.
Okay.
So she's 21. He's 42.
Yeah, that makes sense. But this friend of mine came back. I don't know how it happened. We were just talking about something. I don't think I even mentioned his name. She came back with this whole thing where he lived, every city,
Oh yeah.
his addresses.
Well, the city directories
It's
are pretty amazing like that.
It's amazing. You know.
Let's see. So if we go back here to the tree part, whoop, come on.
Clark Kelly.
So you never really,
No, I never knew him very much.
remember
I-
living with him or anything or any of that?
Not really. The only thing I can remember, we had a dog, and I remember when up there, you know, you caught all your own fish and shellfish and so forth and so on, and they would go to Gray's Harbor to get clams and so forth. You know, we always had. In season, we always had oysters and French fries for dinner on Friday night.
That's cool.
Always.
So yeah, you can see like the city directories.
Wow.
You can actually look and see
That's
what
amazing.
the actual address is. So
That's
you can
amazing.
You can look at it.
See,
and
because
just
that's
say,
that's where I was
let's
born.
see.
Yeah.
Haven Boomer, Alpha Boomer, 6th Avenue, 1310
Yeah.
6th Avenue.
She came up with all of these things, and his death certificate, and a picture of his grave, and the whole business.
Yeah, no, it's pretty amazing the amount
It's
of,
really amazing. You don't realize how much
how much is out there.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I sent you guys this stuff, and you can look at it the same way I am.
When did you
just kinda
send
have
it?
to-
Because I don't think I've ever seen any of these.
Well, this is. Well, I'll send it again, but it's. I
Okay.
think I sent a link to it, and it's just kind of the overall.
That could be.
Overall.
Because I didn't know that there was anything I could get from that. You know?
Yeah. So if you click on the person, so let's say we click on say
okay.
this is Haven's, and it goes way back. So watch this. The Stanaways. If I click on her, all of a sudden it'll carry the tree up. Let's see. Let's shrink it down because it does start getting really big,
Oh my
really
gosh.
fast. So the Stanaways go over here.
Good Lord.
There's Emma Wivel, and that goes way back. And then
Good
William
gosh.
Stanaway. That goes way back.
Well,
If
now
we follow that-
how come I couldn't go do that with my great grandfather that was the judge?
Well, okay, so let's back up and go to Obadiah McFadden. So if you click on him, because it gets so wide so fast, you have to back up and then go down a certain.
Now, see, I've seen this picture. I have
right.
Anne had this original of that, and she donated it to historical museum in Chehalis.
So that's the original Obadiah.
You're
And
right.
then Margaret.
Right.
And then these are her parents, and this is his father is Robert McFadden,
Okay.
who I think came over from Ireland, I believe. I'm not totally sure.
Good
Or
Lord.
England. Let's look at him. No, he was born in Pennsylvania. And he died in Pennsylvania, but I think this Alexander McFadden comes from Ireland.
Yeah.
And then, you start getting into like ill-defined
Good
people like
Lord.
Miss Henry,
Yes.
So that goes back to 1760s.
Good
So,
gosh.
but yeah, that's so.
And that you can't go any further than that to the 1760s.
Yeah, then you kind of at least with him, it's not really traceable. Certain folks, it is. I mean,
Yeah, I see.
certain legs of the whole tree go way back. So
Wow.
basically, there's Obadiah, and then there's a whole bunch of other siblings over here, which are William McFadden and then Mary McFadden. But then she married this guy, William Miller.
Yeah, right.
And I think you recognized him from somewhere.
Well,
Or,
he
I mean,
was
that's,
he was a cousin of my mother's. Okay, and Winlock Miller now used to be the president of the Regents of the University of Washington.
Okay.
And when he died, he left my mother. All it is an envelope, a very old envelope with letters in it.
Oh.
Somebody, and I can't remember who now, but I think the original Obadiah was, or somebody in the family. I thought it was Obadiah, but I could be wrong. It could be this one. Was a
So this is the older one. This is the younger one.
the older one was before he became the territorial judge. He was a representative of some kind where he went to Congress every time, and these are letters that he wrote back in. Well, I think it was when he was territorial judge. He had to go back to Washington and so forth,
Right.
And so forth and so on. And there's a pack of letters that he wrote back, and how is the family doing, and so forth and so on. And I have that. It's a very
Oh, really?
oh yeah
That's
cool. They're very old.
You should scan those or
Oh yeah,
or
because
photograph
they're
them.
almost ready to fall apart.
Yeah, no, there's a certain way those things have to
Right.
be handled.
Right.
So these are cousins. So this is, Harold and
wait a minute.
Rena, and so this is a different
These
way.
these are my
Those
my
are your aunts and uncles,
aunts and uncles.
and then
right.
these would be their cousins,
Right.
which would be Winlock and
Right.
Penelope. And
Right. Pendleton Miller.
So do you know? Do
Now,
you
see,
remember
I don't
them at
know.
all? I mean,
No,
personally?
I've never met them that I know of. Well,
Okay.
obviously, 1904, but
But
no.
Winlock went till 64.
I know. No, but
There's
my
some old people. I'm surprised, like looking at all the dates and stuff. Like I don't know why. I was thinking the life expectancy was much shorter.
well,
But there's, in general, I'm pretty surprised at like the longevity of people.
Look at this one was 93.
Yeah,
Winlock
no,
Miller.
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
That's pretty old. I was expecting people to be like 40 and 50.
Yeah, that's right. You never know. And I never knew. I don't know who that is. Stella Reinhardt.
Well, that was her maiden name. So that's Obadiah. She married that Obadiah.
Oh, that one. Okay.
So the siblings have the lines drawn to them,
Okay.
and the people who married in don't, because they're
Alright.
from different families and have different maiden
Okay.
names and stuff.
All right.
So so Catherine O. McFadden,
Yeah.
right,
Kate. Yeah.
married. She probably became Russell. right?
Howard Russell. Right. And he was He had a graduate. He was a graduate of the University of Scotland in Edinburgh
Really?
in engineering, and this was during the Depression. He couldn't get a job, so he retired as a policeman from the city of Los Angeles.
So they went to Los Angeles, and then he.
Well, it's really funny because she was in her 30s. She became pregnant
Right.
when they weren't married.
Right.
And so she came down and stayed with Aunt Viola
Okay.
and was going to have the baby. Actually, it turned out to be twins, Robert and David. Have them down here. And Viola, or Aunt Pat, it was Aunt Pat, went to him and said, "You will marry my sister. You will go to California right now, and you will marry her."
Here's the deal.
So yeah, that's right. So he did. So they lived on White Oak Avenue in Los Angeles. You know, way out in the valley. They lived down the street from Dinah Shore and her husband, and from Spencer Tracy.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah, and from Donna Michi. When I was a kid, we used to play with their kids all the time. You know.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Well,
That's cool.
it was a totally different deal. You know.
Right. The valley was somewhat rural, right?
Oh, absolutely. The Spencers had their son John was deaf, so they built a polo field there for him, so he could play polo, you know, and to have something to do, you know, and they took care of him that way. But
Wow.
oh yeah, it was a totally different city.
Right.
I'll tell you.
So Viola, basically, she hosted a bunch of people coming down, right? I mean, I
Well-
remember her when I was little,
Yeah.
going up to LA and
Oh,
visiting
yeah. Oh,
Viola
yeah.
and Patricia.
She and my mother used to drink together when I was a kid. And then all of a sudden she became a teetotaler. And boy, she wouldn't have anybody in the house that had any liquor on their breath or anything else. And she was so much against it. And I remember Patricia, when she was in her 30s, afraid to go home if she had
Something
gone out and
drinking.
partied, you know. Oh yes. You know, you don't, you just didn't do it. But she could be very harsh, but she was always good to me. But, yeah.
Patricia, I always loved Patricia. She was great.
Oh,
She,
yeah.
so she was, did she grow up in LA?
Yeah.
Or did she,
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
she
she
was
was
born.
born and
Yeah.
grew up in LA? and
Well, I think
stuff?
she was born in Washington. I'm not sure. She might have been born down there. She was married to, Viola was married to the son of one of the group of families that knew each other well in Chehalis. Okay, and they didn't tell her that he had come back from the Second World War with syphilis,
Oh,
and at that time there was no cure for it. You know.
wow.
So he abandoned, and she was very fortunate because Patricia wasn't born with any problems with it. But he later went into dementia, which is very frequent, you know, with that, because it goes to the brain. And he was put in an institution, and he was down here in Sawtelle for many, many years. Patricia didn't even know she had a father until she was a teenager.
Wow.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Well, like Kate's, she didn't know that her mother had married after her children were born. You know, there was the twins, David and Robert, and then I think a year, 18 months later, there was Kathleen. She didn't know that until the twins died. One of the twins died or something like that. And somebody died. Maybe it was her mother. And she found out at that time and she was just horrified, you know, just horrified that
Right.
had happened. But they say that all these things that are happening now never happened before. Give me a break.
Right.
You know, people
No, it
kept
makes-
them,
it makes
people
sense.
kept
I
them
mean-
quiet.
People are people.
That's right.
The, so, but But like, so up in Washington, was it like, was there? I mean, what was the population like? Was it kind of like
5,000.
right? So it's pretty
For-
small. So there's a
oh,
lot of
yeah.
like family intertwining.
Oh,
stuff and all
absolutely,
that.
absolutely.
All those families
You know,
really knew each other. I'm
absolutely.
sure.
Absolutely. And Nora Hovey's was my cousin Margaret's, what's her name? Mary's grandmother.
So wait,
Yeah.
I'm,
I knew her. I knew
you knew Nora and Harold.
Nora. Well, Nora and Harold McFadden. They lived out on the ranch in, I don't know, I think it was out in the prairie. You know, there was a lot of it was all open land. You know, people, they had a town of 5,000, and then on Saturday, everybody came in to shop, you know, because all the farmers and everything, you know. I remember when I was a kid going to Grange parties, Grange dances, where the whole family always went. And the kids danced, and the parents danced, and everybody, it was totally different than what it is now. The children were integrated with what the families did,
Right.
you know.
Right.
That type of thing, you know.
And
But-
so did it? Did that? Do you think that kept people more like honest with each other because there's no hiding? I mean, everybody would know everybody's
everybody
business,
knew
right?
what everybody did. My home ec teacher in high school taught my mother, and she used to call me Alpha all the time. I hated it. I hated it. When you come from a small town, it's hard to deal with, you know. But then after you leave, you know, I went back there when Michael and Darcy were small,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So it was a number of years that I had not been back, and talked to the people that I met with the people that I had gone to school with. I had absolutely nothing in common with them. All they worried about was whose barn burned down, you know, blah, 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 and so forth and so on. They had nothing, and this was during, I think, the Korean War, something like that. They had no interest outside of the small town of Chehalis.
Right.
It was amazing. And
But they were probably always that way, and you
well,
broadened your experience.
I don't know.
and
I guess
horizon.
so. I guess so, because I just had nothing in common with them at all.
Right.
You know, it's very strange.
Was it disappointing, or was it?
It was very disappointing to me. Yes, and I had no thought of ever going back, because I didn't. I mean, to see them, you know, I just wasn't. I wasn't interested.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I felt that I guess I felt that I had outgrown them. You know,
Right.
that's the only thing I can think of. You know,
So you went back. What would that be, in the 50s or something, with Darcy?
something.
And Mike, or-
Yes, when we went to Alaska.
Okay.
We went to Alaska. So the kids were small. I think Darcy was 4, and Michael was maybe 5, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much when we went to Alaska.
Right.
So I lived in Van Nuys. I drove, had a Nash, and drove it up to Seattle, and then we went from Seattle on a ship.
With Darcy and Mike, or
Yeah.
Terry? Where was
Yeah,
Terry at?
Terry
What
was with us too.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was, you know.
And so, tell me about their dads. How did you meet?
Well,
start with Terry's
Bill,
dad.
Okay, he was a military. When I graduated from high school, I was 16, and I wanted to get away from my mother because she was an alcoholic, and I couldn't bring friends home. I just felt really, I didn't want anything to do with it, because she was a nasty drunk. I mean, 2 beers and she was out of it. I mean, she was just nasty. So I took a job working for the government as a clerk in the Navy up in San Francisco. So I lived
So you went from
Treasure
Van
Island.
Nuys
Yeah,
up to
to
San
San
Francisco.
Francisco, to Treasure Island. I lived in San Francisco, but I worked in Treasure Island. And they met him there, and I don't know. That was so stupid because I don't know why I got married. I mean, I really, you don't really know at that time, you know. You just have nothing else to do, you know. So I went to Florida when we got married and got pregnant, and I had Terry, and Terry was born pretty ill. And his parents were real Southerners, even in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, the
You know.
dad of the,
Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
It was Smith. It
Uh-huh.
was James Smith.
Uh-huh.
So and they had another son besides Terry's dad, who is married and could not conceive a child. So they were very jealous because I had a baby, you know, and just wanted nothing to do with me. But the mother, it was very strange. I was the California girl, you know, and blah blah blah. And just I don't know, nothing ever happened, ever worked out right. Anyway, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have moved that.
No, it's. I think it just the screen after a while.
Oh,
I think it's
okay.
still doing what it needs to do.
Hopefully it does.
I hope.
So anyway, he was born with what they call pyloric stenosis, and it is instead of when you eat, when they had anything to eat, they would, instead of it going down through the into your
This
stomach.
is Terry.
Yeah, Terry. It violently erupted, and it would come back out in a stream, and he was very sick, and he couldn't gain weight because he was so
Wow.
ill, you know. And so my mother came out. I just literally went to pieces because I had never been around kids. I'd never babysat. I'd never done anything, you know. So my mother came out and brought me home, back to Van Nuys. And so he came out later. And I had taken the baby, and he came out later, and we had quite a, we never got along. So, and he got, not mean, but he just, I don't know, I don't remember much about it, but I know that I had to call his father and tell him to come out here and get him, because one day he came to where I lived and took the baby, and I called the police, and the police couldn't do anything about it because he was the father.
Wow.
And so he was gone for maybe 3 weeks, and he returned the baby to me.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So I called his father at that time, and I said, you got to get a hold of him. You got to take him back with you. So he did, and I divorced him. And then I got a hold of Bill Hogan from Chehalis, who I had gone out with before and really cared about. And he came over, and we were married a few years later, and had Michael and Darcy.
Right.
You know.
But
So-
he was up in Chehalis, or did you go
no,
up to
he was
Chehalis?
in the
then, or-
no, he was in the military. He was in the Navy, the
Uh-huh.
career Navy, and he had been in a number of places. Well, what I don't know how to put it. I don't know. We had ups and downs, and he drank a lot, and I just really had a hard time with that. And then I found out that he had lied to me about some pretty important things. So I said, that's it. And we were in Alaska at the time. Well, I'll tell you, we bought some property out in Spring Valley, and we were going to build on it when he got back from Alaska. I was going to school at San Diego State because I realized that he had no interest in bettering himself or doing anything for the kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just I decided I better go back to school. So I went back to school the day Darcy was 2 and could be put in a nursery school. And it wasn't easy. That's why I don't have too much sympathy for these young girls. I can't do this, I can't do that. We lived about 70th and El Cajon, within a few blocks of there. We only had one car. He used it to go to the base, you know. I had to take the 2 children, take a bus down to Park Boulevard in San Diego, and drop the kids off at a nursery school. And Terry went to the Catholic school down there. Then I would take the bus back out to San Diego State and go to school, and then I'd have to return. When I got through with my classes, I'd have to return this whole thing and pick up the kids.
Do the
and
return lap. Holy cow.
yeah, oh yeah, I did that every day, and I was taking units of chemistry and math, and physics and stuff like that for the sciences. So it wasn't easy, but and I had a part-time job at the college too to correct papers. So I did that for 2 years while he was in Alaska, and I just kind of had a breakdown. They gave me I had all A's, but they gave me my things, my grades, because they were so good, and I didn't have to make them up. But I realized I couldn't do that anymore because I only got 3 or 4 hours sleep at night for a couple of years.
Oh, jeez.
So that's why I don't have too much sympathy when they say, "Well, I can't do this because blah blah blah." If you want to do it, you do things.
Yeah.
So.
But it also puts you to the end of your.
What?
That also puts you at the end of what was doable, right? I mean, if it.
I know,
really,
but you
like,
make
kinda broke
things
you down.
doable. You
Yeah.
make things doable. So anyway, I sold the property, went to Alaska, and it was. I remember when I arrived there, he was the manager. Bill Hogan was the manager of the enlisted clubs there because he was an enlisted man. So he took me to the bar there with the kids, and he introduced me to a girl that he worked with, supposedly. And at that time, somebody came over who was drunk, who was a friend of his. You son of a bitch, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. And I wondered about it at the time. Well, it turns out he'd been living with her. Bill had been living with her, and I found out. Somebody told me.
Wow.
So I threw him out. And no, I didn't throw him out. I said, "Look, this has got to stop. It's that's it. I didn't have the money to come back home with the kids. I couldn't do anything. So I thought everything was all right, and I lived there almost a year. And then I needed something out of his desk, some pencils or something like that. And I went in there, and there were a bunch of letters from this woman. And I opened them up, and I showed them to him, and I said, "You son of a bitch," And then apparently he was ill and went to a psychiatrist in the Navy. The Navy called me in, and they said, "Do you really want gone off and off and on and off and on? Do you want to help him or not?" And I said, "No, I'm through." So they said, "Then let it be through." So that's when I came back to Washington, San Diego.
So you didn't go to Washington, you went to San Diego.
No, I went to San Diego. And I got a job for General Dynamics, and that's what I did.
Was it Convair at that time or General Dynamics?
Yeah, it was General Dynamics,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So I worked then.
So where'd you move? So that was with the 3 kids, right?
Yeah,
And so
right.
then you came back to
Right.
where out in San Diego?
I lived up on right off of El Cajon Boulevard, on a street up there close to the junior high school up there. Then at
Okay.
that time, Terry and I was terrified because Before we left, Bill wouldn't speak to the kids at all, or to me, and that was fine with me, but not with the kids.
Yeah.
The kids, Michael was so upset. He would run to him and he would turn his back on him and go away, And he had told me, he said, well, I'll find you. And I was scared. I mean, he scared me. He really did. So anyway, so I didn't know anything about him, and came back, and Terry, when we were living there, Terry came home one day and he was very agitated, and he and another friend had entered Wilson Junior High School and made a mess. I mean, they caused thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage. So I made him go to the police. He and I got in the car and we went down to the police, and I told them what he had done.
How old is he at this time?
He was in junior high school.
Okay.
So he said, Mom, you don't love me because you do. I said, I love you because that's why I'm doing it. You can't do this. So it turns out the other boy pleaded innocence and got off, and Terry was put on probation.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. And so he was doing other things, such as entering people's houses and taking money of people that I knew. And so I called his father and I said, look, you have got to take him, Bill, up in Alaska. So that's when Terry went to Alaska.
Oh, so Terry, okay, meaning, but not Terry's dad, but,
No.
but Bill,
Bill, yeah,
Bill Hogan, who
right.
was
And he,
more or less now his dad, right?
Right. The other one had given him up, his original father.
So did
had
Bill,
given him.
like, adopt him? Or
No,
was
he
there
was
anything
going
like
to,
that?
but he didn't. He never got around to it,
Uh-huh.
So anyway, that was pretty traumatic. And I ended up paying for the damage because we admitted it. The other kid didn't,
Wow.
It was pretty crappy, anyway.
So Terry went back
And
up to...
the reason they said I was an uncooperative mother, because the man that interviewed me spent all of a half an hour with me, wanting to know what was going on with the family, and then went ahead and made his conclusions to social work and social agency, and I really resented that. He did not make an investigation of what anything was, He did a lousy job.
Right.
You see what I mean? So I really resented it. So I was classified as an uncooperative parent. And
Wow.
yeah. So anyway.
That's kind of a disappointment from authorities, right? I mean,
Well,
somebody
yes,
basically kind of has power over your future.
absolutely. So pretty much from there, I went to work for GD and worked there
Mm-hmm.
until I met your dad and Bill and
What were you
And
doing?
Jim.
What were you doing there?
I was working as a what they called a test engineer. I mean, a quality control engineer, which didn't mean a damn thing, But the classified gave me a good salary because I didn't have the education for it,
Uh-huh.
But that's about all.
So was that like off of PCH down there, or was it like in Kearney Mesa?
I started at PCH,
Uh-huh.
and then I went to Kearney Mesa. Yeah.
Okay.
PCA, or the one down on the highway, the big
Right.
building down the highway. Yeah,
Yeah.
I worked there.
Still there.
I know, it's a huge building, just huge. You could use roller skates to get from one end to the other. But that's pretty much it,
And then then you worked there, and you met my dad and Bill and
Uh-huh.
Jim Dubeck. And
Right.
that
We used to
whole
play bridge with
crowd.
them all.
Uh-huh.
All the time.
Right. And so is there people that that are kind of, I mean, so it seems like there's like that's like a lot of family flow through of stuff. But was there like friends that you know from that era when like, like other moms or anything that were
Not
like
anymore.
kind of...
The ones that we used to know when you were born was it's well, I don't know. The families we knew were the ones when you were swimming.
Right.
We knew all of those, and so they've just kind of pretty much gone. I mean,
Right.
scattered.
But I mean, like, say for Mike and Darcy's, the family friends from that era.
No, no.
It seems like there was a lot of movement, a lot of
Yeah.
right. I mean, so
That's
that's
right.
kind of
Hey, I was
disruptive to
working and
No,
trying
no.
to take care of.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
not
didn't
saying
have
it
time.
like you
I
should have
did-
done
no,
something
I know,
different.
I know. I'm saying the reason is because I was working and working overtime too,
Yeah.
and had the kids and the family and everything, and just didn't have time for anything,
Right. Now, do you think like
and didn't have
like
the
the
money
way
for it either.
families are now and versus then, and I know there's kind of a ebb and flow, but I mean, it seems like as much as people like kind of harken back to some like more traditional time, it seems like people were living lives other than that in terms of like there's a lot of like families broken up and people going left and right and
It
kind of
depends upon where you're from, because small towns or foreign countries, people don't move around
Mhm.
like they do, because they're established families that have been there for generations. Like when who was it? Terry's wife went back to
Oh right.
Yeah.
Not Carolyn. What was it? Catherine.
No,
Hang on.
I can't remember what her name is.
Hang on. I
Yeah.
can get to it here in a second.
Yeah, I've talked to her recently too. Barbara.
Oh, Barbara Vent. Okay,
Yeah.
I was thinking of
No.
the other
Barbara.
Carol.
No. Barbara.
Because Terry married Carol, and I just have yet to fill that out. Right, where she's got the two girls. Right.
Oh no, her name wasn't Carol. That's Mary.
Mary.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know why it showed up there as I
I
thought.
don't
Well, maybe
know.
she's called something else.
I don't know.
So yeah,
But,
Barbara shows up there,
Yeah.
and Terry. Was it Mary? Was maybe her
Mary.
name Mary Hermanson?
I don't know what her last name was, but Mary, anyway, Barbara, when she inquired as to her her name back there in Germany,
Von Hagel?
they knew,
Uh-huh.
yeah, Von Hagel. They knew exactly where her family lived, what
Oh,
town
yeah.
her family was from, so.
Probably
that-
Hegel, because
Yeah.
it's Von
I don't
of,
know.
Of Hegel.
I don't
That's
know.
Von is. That's
But
what that means.
yeah, of Hegel, yeah, right. But it's totally different when you say things are different now. Well, they are, because people move around a lot more because of jobs.
Right.
It used
But
to
I
be
mean,
when
it
you had
seems
a
like
j-
there's a thread of like kind of, military stuff and various other things, and people, whatever, a westward movement, and
Oh
you know,
yeah,
Europe,
they come where the
you-
jobs are. They
you're-
go where the jobs
right,
are.
and you're up and down the coast a whole bunch, from Alaska to San Diego. So I mean, it just, and I think in people's minds they think, that people were more just like in one place.
Well, my mother was kind of a black sheep because she was divorced.
Uh-huh.
And during that time, people didn't get divorced. But
Right. We were watching The Crown, the TV show. Have
Uh-huh.
you seen that on Netflix?
no, I haven't. I've seen Victoria, but I haven't
Oh,
seen
you
The
will
Crown.
love The Crown.
Oh,
It
really?
is so good.
Oh,
So
really?
good. Anyways, there's a whole thing about not King George, but his brother who abdicated,
Uh-huh.
and the whole family
Oh,
rejecting
yeah.
him and stuff. And
Yeah,
there's a whole like,
Sure. Well,
and that's an extreme example because they're royalty.
right, right.
But that whole
Windsor.
vibe of Windsor
Oh, sure.
family and
Oh,
and-
yeah. Uh-huh. Well, there's Victoria has the same thing,
Mhm.
and the politics involved in the marriages and so forth, It's very interesting. But I don't know, it's just a totally different time. And the difference in population, you know,
Mm-hmm.
when there's a lot more pressure on people now, it seems to me. It's really too bad to see these kids under pressure. You've got to go to this school. You've got to blah 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 blah. You know, when they're before they're even teenagers, and they don't have a chance to be a kid sometimes.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and
No, there's a serious weight on their accomplishments, and
that's right.
it's kind of like they need.
But
People
I don't.
feel that they need
I don't
them
think
to
they
define
need to.
themselves.
Well, it's like I couldn't believe the pressure that John used to put on you when you were swimming. If you
Oh, John
missed a day,
Harrington?
yeah. If you missed a day, my God, you'd think you'd committed a murder. You know, well, practically. And he wouldn't let you play other sports and everything. I wanted you to play other sports, you know, and that's why I really appreciate the way Miles is. He is a very well-rounded person because he doesn't get he gets involved with things, but there are other things than just, you know, the math or whatever he likes, you know, the sciences. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah. No, it's good to wear a few hats, for sure.
That's right. That's right.
Do you want to keep going, or you want to take a break for a minute, or?
No, I'd like to take a break for now for a minute.
Okay. I mean, longer than a minute, but
Yeah.
no, this is good. Here, let me pause the recording.
Okay.
You want something to drink?
Yeah, I need something to drink.